Hey y'all, this is Paul from Indianapolis. With you again with another video just to share another card, another story of my collection. Thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate you taking time just to watch this video. If you wouldn't mind subscribing and liking if you haven't, but I just appreciate you taking your time. I know time is valuable. So before I get into the card that I added, I wanted to just acknowledge the background that I have here. I might have one of the most colorful backdrops of any sports card YouTube channel, and it's not at all sports related. This painting was done actually by my neighbor Kyle, who's right next door over there. And he's a well-known artist here in the city, and he painted this for my wife's work, and her work gave it to her. So that is what that painting is. If any of y'all are curious what these legs are doing behind me or what that might be up there, that's what it is. And so just wanted to show you that before we move on. So I wanted to share with you just a little bit about the card I added, but let me give you a little bit of context before. I've really focused primarily on the 50s cards. I really love that era of cards and that era of baseball and baseball history and the stories that go with that era. And so I really focused on, that's the furthest back I'd gone, was the 1950s, and I really focused there, and I've picked some cards up along the way. The 4 cards I'm going to show you from the 50s that I have are in line to get graded. This first one here is a 52 Bowman Preacher Row that that's in line to get graded, as well as this 53 Bill Bruton, a bridge player from the Negro Leagues to the Major Leagues. Also from my favorite set, the 1956 Charlie Neal, another bridge player, played briefly with the Atlanta Black Crackers. And I love this 56 set, it's my favorite of all time. And then Stan the Man. His first Topps card. So all 4 of these cards are cards that I had picked up in the 50s that I was really interested in and wanted, and that was the extent and how far my collecting had gone. I wanted to get into pre-war before World War II, but I figured that would be down the road. But I did something dangerous. I scrolled on eBay and I was looking at 1940 play balls and saw one for $25, and all-in price would be right over $30. And I'm thinking, for something that's 85 years old, that's got to be a pretty darn good price. And so I ended up pulling the trigger and buying an Eddie Miller 1940 play ball PSA 4. To be honest, never heard this guy before in my life. I went off script. I'm usually pretty focused on what I buy. My budget's not great, so I really want to make the most of what I've got. But I pulled the trigger, got this 1940 play ball, 85-year-old card that I'm holding here. To me, that's probably honestly the coolest part about this, is that I have something in my collection that's 85 years old. But yeah, I took the leap, just went in and got it. I did a little bit of research on him. I usually like to get players I like and I know. And so I did enough before I bought the card to where I'm like, yeah, I'm good getting this. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Eddie Miller that I found out. I found out that he was born in 1960, Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania. It's a suburb right outside Pittsburgh. And he grew up so poor with 4 other siblings that he often had to spend the night at his best friend's house. And his baseball journey kind of started, I'm sure he grew up playing, but he tried out for the high school team, and they said he was too small. And so what I love about Eddie Miller is his fight. He didn't stop. And that's what really stood out to me about Eddie Miller, character-wise, about his personality. And so he didn't give up. And so he volunteered at the local shoe shop, shoe repair store, or shoe store. And with the goal of getting onto a semi-pro team. He didn't make the semi-pro team, but he made it as a bat boy. And so he was the bat boy, but yet he got to train with the team. And so he was getting to develop as a player. And a couple years later, he ended up being invited and making the high school team. So to me, that was pretty cool what he came up with and what he did to improve himself, and that he fought and worked hard for that. So he made his high school team, and at the age of 17 in 1934, the Pittsburgh Pirates signed him. His local team signed him. He signed to a major league team, which to me that's just really cool. And was good for him, that the fight for him to be able to see that it was worth it and to see results. He hung out in the minor leagues for a couple years, and in 1936 he was traded to the Cincinnati Reds. And later that year, in September, he made his major league debut as a defensive replacement at second base against the New York Giants. And 10 days later, he got his first hit in the majors. And he played there for a couple years before he was traded to the Boston Bees. And while there, he had his best fielding year in 1942. He only committed 13 errors, had a .983 fielding percentage. 13 errors on fields in that era that were probably not well kept is really impressive. He was the traditional stereotype of a shortstop of that era. High in fielding, strong in fielding, weak at the bat. And that shows through his hitting that his best years of batting were around 268 and 276. And home run wise, 19 was the most he had. He had 14 another year. And he had 79 and 87 another year. A WAR of 4.6 was the most he had. And so he also had batting years down around 200 and down around 230. So his batting average was not great, but he did have a few good years, good enough to make the All-Star team for 7 out of 8 years between 1940 and 1948. By metrics, he was the best fielding shortstop of his era in the National League, and that's what got him on those teams, and that's what got him attention, even to where he finished 10th place in the MVP race one year. But that fight also had another side where it wore out his welcome at times and hurt him relationally, hurt his career, and where he got traded twice because of it. In 1942, he was traded from the Boston Bees to the Cincinnati Reds because over a salary dispute. He wasn't getting along with Casey Stengel, the manager, and he didn't want to play for a second division team. So he ended up going to the Reds, had some great years there, but in 1948 he was speaking after the season was over, speaking at a speaking engagement, and was talking to a reporter and what he thought was off the record, and he just talked about how he wished he had a different manager, and he thought the team would be lucky to finish tied for last place, and didn't think the young players they had were that good. And but it went into print and became public knowledge. And when it was brought to him, he wouldn't back down. He wouldn't apologize. He wouldn't take back the remarks, and he ended up being traded for that as well to the Philadelphia Phillies. So his fight got him to the majors, got him pretty good success for himself and what most people would consider, especially starting with where he started from high school. But he also just hurt himself along the ways with that fight. And so he was just a fascinating figure to get to learn more about. And I'm glad I got the card. I'm glad I got an 85-year-old card. I think I got a good deal. I'm glad I got to know a little bit about a player from the past I've never known about. Gave me a little sliver of baseball history and respect and appreciation. An example of someone who fought above their weight and achieved their goal and got to the major leagues. So thank you very much for watching as I introduced you probably to Eddie Miller. And if you have heard of him, let me know. I'd just be curious how you knew about him, or if you bought a card of a player that was kind of off script, what you wouldn't usually do. And feel free to share that story in the comments as well. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you have a great day. Bye.